Hey everybody, welcome back to Ask Pastor. If this is your first time tuning in with us, this is our bi-weekly podcast where we take your questions and we sit with Pastor Marco and we just talk about them. So in lieu of Cruise launching this past week at New Life, we want to sit down and talk about the power of having a good community. What's it like to have a good group of friends around you who love you, support you, challenge you, and believe in the best for you? We also tackle mental health a little bit and talk about the difference between struggling with isolation versus just needing a moment away from all the noise of the world and even your friends and loved ones to just have a minute of solitude where you get alone with God and see what He's trying to say to you specifically. It was an incredible talk, so we hope that you enjoy.
So I put my phone number in for the last episode, and the only callbacks I got were about my car's extended warranty. So I think we're gonna have to change up our tactic a little bit.
Then we're gonna go Instagram. Your handle. We're just gonna give you your Instagram handle.
I'm off Instagram, everyone, so I'm sorry to disappoint. You can find me on MySpace.
If someone wants to find you,
they will.
They will.
They know where to find me.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Pastor, you know that we just launched Cruise this past week, and it's been awesome so far. So, for this episode, we wanted to kind of get your heart about Cruise and our community and kind of why we do them. So the first question right out of the gate is, why are Cruise important to New Life South Coast? Why do we do them?
Yeah, I think it matters because it's how God intended for us to live. God wants us to be in community. From the beginning, right? From Genesis, He said it's not good for humanity to be alone.
Right.
And so right off the bat, and God Himself is a community, right? Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Actually, when He said He's going to create man, He says, let us create man in that image and likeness. So we need each other. We need to be in community. And Cruise is our approach to basically doing life together.
Right.
And then when Jesus came to earth, first thing He does is he puts together a crew of guys to do life together with. And within that crew, there was some significant relationships that He developed with those guys. And obviously the rest of history has changed the world. And so for us, we're trying to find a way to have that biblical model of bringing people together in small settings where they can develop relationships, friendships, ask questions, pray for each other, and just be there for each other, really do life together. And who knows what could birth out of those crews, the deeper friendships that could happen.
Right. So just an off-topic question, because I'm actually curious on your thoughts about it. You know that Francis Chan has talked a lot about churches kind of returning to the way that they were in the New Testament, where they meet in homes. Do you personally think we could ever maybe get back to that in the next like 50, 75, 100 years where, maybe we only meet here once in a while, but we actually do church at home? What do you think about that?
I say yes to no, because the movement started that way, but obviously if you want to reach the world, you don't have enough houses to do that, right?
Right.
So you need larger gatherings. I think it's both. I don't think you have to be either or. I think it's important for the body to come together as one, and then break out into smaller groups of people, whatever you want to call them, crews or Bible studies or whatnot. I think we need both. I think we need big gatherings that we look around and go, wow, look at the body. And also that gives us a chance to bring new people into it, because most likely new people are not going to just go to a crew. Right. You know what I mean? Like new people feel more comfortable going to a bigger gathering. And then from there, as they say yes to Jesus in His ways, I guarantee you then the next step might be, okay, now I need a smaller crew to be able to unpack these things with and do life with. So I think it doesn't have to be either or, right? Unfortunately, we're people at extremes. It's like it's in one way or the other way. But I think it's both. I think we need both to really fulfill the calling that God has for us.
Absolutely. So when someone's looking for a healthy community, what are some things, like what are some green lights or green flags for you? If someone says, I'm looking for a healthy community, what would you say is on that list?
Okay, so if I'm going personal here, I would say for me, the number one thing is, do I feel like I belong? And are these people for real? You know what I mean? Because you guys probably heard me say this many times, you can't fake the funk. Like I just want to be around people who are for real about life, about Jesus, about the mess of it all, because I don't have any grand illusion of this being a perfect thing. You know what I mean? I just want to know, like, hey, we're all broken. We're all seeking the same thing. We all want the same things. Can we be honest with each other and grow together here? So that's what I'm looking for. Set a genuine community of people who they know they're jacked up. They're not trying to put on a front. You know what I mean?
Right.
But it's like there's healing, there's redemption, there's grace, there's strength when we try to do it together with the power of the Holy Spirit.
Right. You expressed in a bonus episode we did of Ask Pastor live in Fall River, when Dre asked you the first question, you said your biggest pet peeve is Christianese. You can't stand it when people are like, how are you? I'm blessed every day, brother. And it's weird. It's just so weird.
So why do you look like you want to cry?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, let's be honest.
Tight.
Let's talk about that. Why do you say you're blessed, but you look like you want to cry? You could be both.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
I believe I'm blessed, but that days I'm jacked up, right? So I just hope that we can create communities of people who can just be genuinely real about what's happening.
Right.
You know?
So being part of a healthy community doesn't necessarily mean that we're best friends with everyone, right? You've always said we love everyone. Doesn't necessarily mean you like everyone. You get along with everyone.
Absolutely.
So how do you cultivate an open-ended relationship with someone you don't see yourself being close with, or you can't imagine them being your best friend, but you know they're still here, they're still around me. I'm going to put that effort in.
Yeah. I think you have to be okay with the reality that you're going to have different layers of connection with people and layers of friendships, right? And that's just the way it goes. Like, it's impossible to be best friends with everybody. Like, that's just not even a reality, you know? So I think it's about like, how open am I to the different levels of connection and friendships that I could have with people? Like, okay, so take Jesus, for example, right? He picked 12 guys, right? But out of the 12, we know that he was closest to 3 of them, you know? That he would do certain things with just those 3 because they have a different level of friendship. To the point that John gave himself a nickname and says, I'm the beloved. Like, I'm the one that he likes the most. You know, it's kind of which is a bold statement to make, you know, which I love that about John. It's like, I'm just going to go ahead, you know. Yeah. But, you know, you got Peter in the mix. You know, you got different personality, different traits, but different levels of connection at the same time. And I think we have to be okay with that reality that we're not going to be close with everyone, but prayerfully, can I be open enough? Can I open my life enough to 2 or 3 people that we can really go on a deeper level of relationship with? And then the rest, some people you just want to say hi to. You know what I mean? I want to love you from a distance, and that's okay.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Again, this false narrative and self-conception that, you know, church, we're all gonna just, you know, sing Kumbaya and be best friends. It's like, no, we can all worship the same God. Right. But the level of connection and relationship is gonna vary. Depending on how close do I feel with you, and how connected do I feel with you, and do we have things in common? Do we want to go deeper? These are all things you don't discover unless you put yourself out there and see where it leads.
Yeah, and you saying we're creatures of extremes, like very black and white thinking. I think whether we want to admit it or not, we have that pressure and even that insecurity where we think, I have to make them like me. It's like, but why do you have to? If they're into you and they're with you, they are. If they're not, they're not. There are 8 billion of us. Like,
absolutely. And as I've always said about that with potential like romantic relationships, right? It's like, man, if you can't really be truly fully yourself, that's a massive red flag. Like, run the other way quickly. So the same thing with friendships. Like, I'm not gonna try to force a friendship into existence. You know, we're gonna try to connect with people, and see where it leads. It's just like, I think you said it when you guys did the panel. Like, finding a good crew is like finding a good therapist. You might have to try a few, right? Until you land on. So I think we have to get out of this mindset of like, oh, I tried it, it didn't work. It's like, that's not how life works. You know what I mean? So you got to keep trying, and see where you actually fit. You know, because man, God forbid you approach life like that in every other setting. Like, you go to a job, oh, I don't like it, I'm never working again. You know what I mean? It's like, bought a house, don't want to pay the mortgage because I don't like it. It's like, life doesn't work like that.
So you mentioning therapy, let's talk about mental health for a second and how it relates to the community at large. We know that mental health it's very much a hot button thing right now. It's a very hot topic. And thankfully we have a church that understands it, that respects it. Your wife is incredible and meets with a lot of people and talks about mental health and emotional health, which is a great thing for our community. So what is some advice that you would give to folks who want to create a space that is safe and it's engaging for people who maybe are going through some mental health struggles, some mental health challenges, but we're also not idolizing our feelings? I think it's a tightrope of you are too much in this And maybe you just need some sleep. Pastor Elijah preached a great message about you need some sleep, you need a good diet, you need hobbies. But then there are some very real things going on in your mental state that do need some more attention and need some more help. So how can we build a community that knows that but doesn't lean too far on either side?
I think, again, that's the beauty of connection and relationship, right? Give people space to be themselves and validate where they are first and foremost, right? I can't tell you how you feel. You know what I mean? Like if you're feeling a certain way, who am I to tell you, no, you don't feel that way? You know, I think that's a terrible way to approach any type of relationship. It's like if you're struggling with mental health and you are brave enough to voice it, man, I need to validate you, right? And I need to acknowledge that, because not a lot of people can come out and say it, right? And that's one of the things that we try to be very aware of in our community, that I always say, like, you don't know who you sit next to, you don't know what they're going through, you know? So the fact that they came out to either a Sunday service or a crew, it's like, that's already a victory in itself if you're fighting mental health.
Right.
So if someone voices it, it's like, wow, what can we do to help you in this process? Right. Now, in the help process is where we can help people kind of maneuver through not just being caught up in their feelings or their emotions, but it's like, what are some of the principles? What are some of the things that is the tools that we have available to us? I just got a powerful email from someone who said that they got breakthrough in their depression because one day they were having a really bad episode and they couldn't even get to church, but they watched online. And they're like, as I'm watching online, there was a moment there in the sermon where I felt like this is for me, you know? And so this person took that moment and activated that principle and said, you know, even though I know that depression might be a battle for me, but I'm not going to let it become my identity, right? You know? And so she wrote down this declaration, you know, and now she's like, this is my declaration now every time I feel that bout of depression coming. So I think there's principles that we can help each other navigate through and help each other get breakthrough. But also, breakthrough does not mean I'm never gonna struggle with it again. You know what I mean? But it's like, can I just be sensitive enough to other people's needs, you know, and just be aware of it. But also, I don't have to say, okay, now we're gonna worship this thing. It's like, no, we're gonna go to the God that can help bring healing. And as you know, we take advantage of all the tools, you know, the tools of prayer, the word, community, but also therapy, counseling, you know, everything that's available. That I believe, I just tell people like, hey, take advantage of all the tools in the toolbox that God gave you. Like, that's what a community is supposed to do, is help each other appropriate ourselves of those tools that's in there already that can help us find freedom.
And if we look at our heroes of faith, you think about Moses, he stuttered. You look at Paul, he openly said, I have a thorn in my side that keeps me clung to Jesus. And what you've been saying in James, even just this past week, was so practical. It's like, instead of saying, God, why am I going through this? It's like, okay, God, this is clearly here, whether it's for a short amount of time or it's from the day I go home. So in the meantime, how do I almost leverage this or use it to bring you glory? Because I've seen people who use their depression to speak out and advocate for others going through it.
And truth be told, like, mental health is not new. I think it's, we're put a spotlight on it more than ever. But, you know, I think about biblical personalities like Jeremiah. Jeremiah said, at one point he said, I wish I wasn't even born. That's depression. That's so borderline suicidal, right? And this is a major prophet. This is someone who God said, I called you to be a prophet from like a child. And in the process of his life and ministry, he got depressed. You know, he got down. Elijah got down.
Makes sense.
You know, Elijah comes out of a massive victory of, you know, like basically destroying these prophets of Baal. And then the next moment, Jezebel says, I'm going to kill you. And the spiral of depression came over him, that he didn't want to eat, he didn't want to do anything. And what's interesting about that story is he runs away, right? He runs. And the Bible says he was like on the road for days. And it's interesting, God sends an angel to speak to him. And here's what the angel says to him in his depressive state. He said, get some sleep and eat. Right? So practical things, like you just said, Pastor Elijah said. And then leaves him, comes back again. Okay, get some more sleep and eat. Then a few days later, God meets with him. In a sense, like, okay, here, right now, all you need is some rest, some good food, some good meal. Then you need prayer, right? And then I'm going to talk you out of this cliff, bring you back to your state of being, and gives him like purpose again. You know what I mean? So it's throughout scriptures, right? Jesus had moments where he was really down, right? When you sweat blood, that's the highest level of anxiety that you can experience.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So all of us are going to experience some type of mental battles in this journey. It's impossible not to.
Right.
You know, so I think it's already been there. It's just that we're giving it more credence and more spotlight to it. We just don't want to worship it. You know what I mean? Right. We don't want to let it become our identity. You know?
So one challenge that we see with mental health, and we saw it a lot with COVID, was isolation. Now, you've expressed that you lean on the introverted side, which is great. And we know that there's a difference between the spiritual discipline of solitude, right? Spending one-on-one time with the Holy Spirit versus isolating and just kind of slipping back into negative thought patterns or more harmful, more self-destructive thought patterns and everything like that. So how would you encourage someone to distinguish and know the difference between I'm having a moment of solitude where I love people, I just need a minute, versus I'm using, again, what is happening to me as an excuse to pull away and ultimately, again, be self-destructive?
Yeah, it's a very good question. And it's a tough one, because in order for you to know the difference between solitude and isolation, you have to be in tune with your soul, right? Because if you're not in tune with your soul, then you might lean on one or the other for too long, right? Where you don't understand, like, oh no, right now it's not good for you to be alone, right? You need to get out of here, right? But your soul gives you clues, right? The soul tells you like, hey, you had a replenished moment. Now this is more than that, right? And that's hard, because you have to really be aware. You have to be in tune, because if not, if someone tries to pull you out of it, you might get mad, you might get defensive, you might get offended, you know. But it's like, be in tune with your soul. Like, what is your soul telling you right now? Like, hey, because as a person who is an introvert and likes solitude, I have to tell myself, okay, it's about that time. We need to get out of this basement. You know what I mean? You need to go mingle. You need to go, and that's something I have to do on purpose, intentionally, because it's easy for me to just stay in my basement, and keep reading books and be a hermit. That's what my wife calls me, a hermit, Right. So I have to intentionally say to myself, okay, you've had your time. You have replenished. Now you could be teetering in the borderline of like, you're just sulking in this, or it's time to get up. You know what I mean? It's interesting, go back to Elijah, right? So the angel says, you need to eat, you need to sleep. But then when he gets to the mountain and God speaks to him, God says, okay, now you need to go.
Right.
You know what I mean? Okay, time to go back. Time to re-engage. So again, you got to be aware of what's happening. Right. Maybe I need some time to replenish, but also I need time to be in community with others, because it's not good for me to be alone for too long. And we know that, especially for those of us who can have those mental battles, it's like too much time alone is also not good for you. You know what I mean? So be aware of that. But that's a hard one, because you have to do some soul work to realize what's my soul telling me.
Right. And to encourage any of you watching, please know that the opposite side is equally as dangerous. So I would say that I know for myself, I'm more of a workaholic. I've expressed on the show many times, I want to just keep going and keep doing and almost speed up, as opposed to slowing down and taking those, because you realize when you sit down, you realize what is actually happening around you and what God is trying to say. And I think we blow it up where God's going to be mad at me and he's going to shame me and hit me with the 2x4. And
again, it's the extremes, right? It's the extremes of like, I'm going to go really hard, or I'm just going to do nothing and just sulk here. But again, it's about being aware of your soul and slow it down. Because slow down could be two things. For someone like you, slow down means like really slow down. Like, listen, stop. You know what I mean? And for some people, it's like, call a friend. You know what I mean? Like sometimes, honestly, it doesn't even have to be that you're talking and all that. It's just being around people. I think that's important. Like I met with a young man who was battling some serious mental stuff, and I was able to go to his house, and his family was like, he's been in that room for days. He won't talk to anybody, any of that. And it was really heavy, we had a great conversation, and I'm just meeting him, But I was telling him, I said, buddy, I think the most safest thing for you to do right now is just open this door and go greet your family, right? And you don't have to say anything. Watch TV with them. Watch a movie with them. Let that be what begins to bring healing to you, because just being around people, right, what begins to bridge the gap between you and another human being you can have a conversation with. You know, so it doesn't have to be right from that to you're gonna go full-blown conversation. It's like, no, just be in a room with someone. I love having a meal with people because there's something about eating that just opens you up. You know what I mean? It's like, again, going back to Elijah, God says, eat. You know what I mean? Because sometimes your body just needs that energy and nourishment, but just eating and you start talking about whatever, the weather, the Red Sox, the Patriots, next thing you know, who knows, a conversation on a deeper level might take place. Where this is where also community is powerful because a friend who is in tune can give you that space, but he knows when to go, hey man, how you actually really been? You know, what's really going on? You know, and that, we need that, right? We need that prodding sometimes. Like, I don't like it as an introvert, but I need it. You know? So.
And even, so to go back to the Christianese thing, even giving a new person space when they come into church to just be a new person. Because it's that pressure of the usher meets you. It's like, oh, it's your first time? Have you joined the mission? Have you been baptized? Do you want to sit right up front and have pastor yell right at you? And it's like, can we just let them come and sit in the back and have some thoughts and have some questions? Let them come back the next week, the next month, and then in 6 months. How many times do we hear when people get baptized, I didn't want to come up here, I didn't want to be here, but I needed to be here. Just let that happen. It's okay.
I'm smiling because I had a conversation with Pastor Steve yesterday about this, right?
Really?
Pastor Steve is so practical. He goes, you ever been to H&M, right? You go to, he's like, go to H&M. And the person working there is folding clothes and they see you come in and you just go, hey, how you doing? And they just keep going, doing their thing. They leave you alone and you feel good. You feel comfortable. Like, as opposed to going to a store where someone just jumps on you like, what do you need anything? Can I get you anything? Is there anything? And it's like, whoa, that's too much, buddy. Like, just, I'm in the room. Right? And let me see what's happening. And for me, that's the beauty of, again, of a community we've tried to create. That's why we'd never, ever, this is like a never rule for us. To be like, hey, are you new here? Raise your hand. You know what I mean? It's like, I've been in places like that. It's like, whoa, what in the world? Pressure's on. I'm not coming back. You know what I mean? So yeah, absolutely. And the same thing with crew. I tell people, like, go to crew. No pressure to say anything. Just sit there and take it in. When you're ready, you'll be ready. I've done, from time to time, I'll do New Believers crew because I love that rawness, that like just coming to faith and those passionate questions in the beginning. But I always say to them, like, hey, there's no pressure here. We're just gonna go through this stuff. If you feel we want to share, you can share. Like, I don't try to put anybody in the spot. And then as the weeks progress, you can begin to see people kind of just feel free to share and comfortable to share. And then towards the end, hey, who knows? You might stop praying, you know? And that's what I usually do. I let it take its course. You know what I mean? It's a journey, you know, and it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. And so, yeah, let's keep people room to just breathe. You know?
So what would you tell someone who feels like their circle isn't the best for them? Because navigating that, it's a weird tension of, do I just leave and say, okay, you guys are 100% not for me? Or should I maybe stick around and try to minister or try to be the light versus getting pulled down? What are your thoughts around something like that?
You know, it's never one size fits all, right? This is where, again, what James talks about wisdom. Asking for wisdom, God, about my inner circle and the people that I'm hanging out with. Because there are times that it's not even bad things. It could be that it just becomes stagnant. Your circle is stagnant and you need a shake up. I'll never forget, I had an amazing circle when I first got saved. I mean, we used to call ourselves the Christian Wu-Tang because there's so many of us. And all raw off the street, praying, you know, meeting with each other. But then after a few years, I'll never forget, we were hanging out in my college dorm room, right? Watching a movie, like we always did. We watched movies, Bible studies, prayer. But in this particular time, something happened to me internally, right? I'm watching the movie with my friends. And a voice inside of me said, I don't think you want to do this for the rest of your life. And it was like a shift. Like I needed to do something different. Not because my friends, but because I need to take control and I need to take ownership of where my soul is and where my life needs to be. Right? And I think one of the telltale questions that you ask yourself once in a while is, when I walk away from my crew or my group, how am I feeling? Am I feeling energized? Am I excited about life? Do I have goals now, but do I feel drained? Do I feel like this is not going anywhere?
Yeah.
You know, so pay attention to those things, right? Because there's seasons for everything. And some people are in our lives for a specific season, in a sense. You know, there's nothing wrong with that, you know. Right. But you got to be aware of that, because it's never one size fits all. And it's not about always bad things like, oh, my crew is doing drugs or smoking. Yeah. It's like, no. It could be that your crew is mediocre. They settle for mediocrity, and they don't have anything to achieve. Yeah. Right? And they're just coasting. I heard one of our crew leaders this season said to his crew, like, hey, we're starting from scratch. Like, I think you guys all need to find a crew and let's just try to do something different because it feels stagnant. I love that. Like, he felt something and he was like, guys, let's go in a different direction. I love you guys. You love me. Let's just try to find something else in this moment. You know?
Right. So in lieu of that and kind of being around certain friend groups, we always say, and we know it biblically, that unity commands a blessing, right? So how do we have a community that is unified, or it's in unity, but it's not uniform, not uniformity, right?
Right. That's a very good question, because a lot of people have a hard time differentiating the two. You know, it comes down to this. It comes down to what are the core values and the most important things, and what are the things that it's not that serious. You know what I'm saying? So, and that, again, that's where discernment and wisdom comes into play, right? That, hey, we are believers, right? We love Jesus, right? We love his people, but we do have personal preferences. We do have things that we have certain convictions for, but it doesn't mean I have to have the same ones as you. You know what I mean? And I think sometimes, unfortunately, in a lack of maturity, discernment, we'll make the smaller things the big things, you know? So it's like, you have to go back to what really matters at the end of the day. You know, that's what unity is. So today, right, we're going to have National Day of Prayer at City Hall, and we're going to pray with different pastors in the city, different denominations, you know, different theologies, but we love Jesus, right? And so it's all about, like, a simple thing for me is, are we on Team Jesus? Great. Right? The other stuff, we'll work it out. Right? Like, some of my friends that are pastors, they won't do church like we do church in a certain extent, and vice versa. Yeah. But guess what? We're on Team Jesus, right? That's what matters. Like, the foundational of our faith remains the same. Right? The other stuff, personal preferences. Okay, you guys rather do hymns all day long. We like to mix it up, bring some contemporary. You know, nothing wrong with that. I love reading from the New Living. I was just talking with a friend of mine. We were just talking about it. He's a little bit different than me in certain approaches to church, but we were joking about that because he's like, I couldn't get into the ESV Bible. I was like, same. I tried it, you know, and I'm like, I'm a New Living guy. Like, I call myself a blue collar theologian. You know what I mean? I'm like down to earth, practical. But some people, you know, they love King James. You know what I mean? It's like, hey, that speaks to your soul. But I do believe we have the same scriptures. I do believe we have the same heart. So again, can we stay focused on the things that really matter? And then the other things that are not so important. Like, I always joke about Second Coming, right? The book of Revelations. People get hung up on all those little details. It's like, to be honest with you, none of us really know. So why are we fighting over the things we don't really know? But we act like we really know. And if you don't see it like me, then we're not united. It's like, no, that's not what unity is. Unity is, we both believe Jesus one day will come back, right? I don't know how or when. I'm not a premillennial, postmillennial. I don't know what that means. I just know this. I love Jesus. I love you. And can we just focus on the things that bind us together? That's what unity commands a blessing means. It's like, I don't have to look like you, talk like you, act like you, dress like you to want the same things you want.
One of my favorite things you said in your book, Untangling Jesus from Religion, you talked about your upbringing, and you said, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe your grandmother was Catholic, right?
So my grandmother was a Nazarene, which is it's a Christian denomination. But she had two sisters who were devout Catholics. And they just loved each other, even though the theology is very different. And they decided that my grandmother was going to take me to Sunday school with her. My aunts were going to take me to Mass. And so my joke has always been, my denomination was Catherine, you know, half Catholic, half Nazarene. But I'm so thankful.
That's what I want to say.
So grateful because it shaped me to see unity on a much deeper level than most people do. Like, I was just It's funny because I was talking to my dentist, because I gave her the book and we were talking about it. And she's like, really, it's not about all these different things, right? I was like, no, I think it's about Jesus. That's why the whole purpose was to untangle all of the stuff so we can get to Jesus. Because I was like, put me in the Catholic Church right now. It may not be my personal preference, but I have no problem with it because I know Jesus and I love Jesus, right? And then this week I went out for breakfast with my wife and I had my Entangling Jesus from Religion sweatshirt. And this older lady that I was checking out with, I paid my bill and she's just looking at, she's like, what does that mean, right? So I gave her like a quick synopsis of it, like what are we trying to do with it?
Right.
And I love her response. This older lady, could be my grandmother, was like, oh, I get it. So remove all the crap out of the way so you can actually get to God. I was like, that's actually a better title.
Yeah,
for my
that's
book.
part 2.
And that's what unity does, right? You remove all the other stuff and keep the main thing the main thing. But a lot of people are not mature enough to see that.
Right.
I think I'm going too long on this one, but I'm very passionate about it. I think we get more caught up on being right than actually being righteous.
Yeah.
But it's like righteousness is way more important than me being right, because at the end of the day, we could all be wrong.
Yeah.
So
let's close on that. I want to read this one specifically. Someone wrote in, you mentioning being right versus being righteous. So someone had said, in a diverse community, you will inevitably have situations or moments where confrontation is necessary. For example, agreeing to disagree in something, differences in your convictions or beliefs, songs, worship styles, etc. How would you encourage someone who struggles with confrontation or is trying to grow in the area of navigating sensitive or difficult situations with others?
Okay, I have to start with a question. Why do you feel the need to be right? What drives that? A lot of times when you ask Christians that, it's like, well, Jesus said the truth, right? The truth. It's like, yeah, Jesus said the truth will set you free, but look at the context of that, right? It's like, how did he say it? What was his tone? What was his approach? Jesus sometimes would let people walk away confused, frustrated, because he didn't give them the answers that they wanted.
Questions or stories to go with.
Still ways to go. And so to me, it's like, man, why can't we have a hard time living in the gray? But a lot of stuff is in the gray. We want black and white. There are some black and white things in scriptures. Like some things are just black, but some things are not. And can we be humble enough to be okay with the gray? Can we be humble enough to be okay with, like, hey, I don't necessarily agree with all of that, but do we have the common denominator things that matters at the end of the day? Because Jesus said the gold, like we call it the golden rule, but Jesus came up with it. He says, do unto others as you be like to be done unto you. Right? And then he said, the whole law is summed up in this: love your neighbor as you love yourself. So how do I apply that? It's like, man, if I'm in a situation with you and things are tense, it's like, how would I want someone to talk to me right now? How would I want someone to come at me? And people's like, well, I'll tell it like it is. Yeah, well, tell it like it is, but the Bible says to do it with grace and wisdom and respect and love. There's many ways to tell the truth. You know what I mean? And so I go back to that. Honestly, why do we feel so strongly about being right? And I hate to say this, I see more people do more damage than good because there's no righteousness in it. There's no, like, I really care about you. So, but we say that, but it's like, no, you really care about being right. You don't really care about the person. Sometimes we don't even see the person. We only see that I need to set you straight. It's very unfortunate. Like, I've been a victim of that. Like, people would say, he's a false teacher. He's this. It's like, we never even had a conversation. You just took sound bites of whatever, and you decided, that's who I am. But it's like, have you ever actually got to know me? Do you know what matters to me? You know my motives, you know my intentions, And so it's a very unfortunate time we live in. Well, probably not new, not the new under the sun, but this has been a battle over the years. I always have to ask myself that question, like, what's more important to me right now? Is it being right, or is it being righteous? Now, that doesn't mean I don't have strong convictions about certain things, but a lot of it has nothing to do with what really matters.
And this notion of you've talked about it a lot, like you're preaching a watered down gospel. It's like, the gospel is good news. If Jesus is getting preached, like, I'm just here to tell you the truth. It's like, do you have to be a jerk about it though? You just said that this past week for James. It's like, do we have to be jerks about everything?
Yeah,
though?
there's real persecution, and then there's like, you know, you're just being a jerk.
Yeah,
and
just
people don't like the way you're doing it. But it's like, I'm just telling the truth. It's like, I don't know if Jesus talked like that.
Yeah,
you know,
I don't think his tone was like that.
No, I don't think so, because it's amazing to me. Like, seriously though, when you pay attention to the gospel, people love being around Jesus.
Yep.
Like, that fascinates me.
Yeah.
Because you talk about like whatever people say watered down. Like, I've embraced that. It's like, yeah, I want some water on this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, water gives growth. You know what I mean?
Life. Yep.
Water gives life. It's like, all right, then I'd rather have that than to be the guy who is just like making it hard and difficult.
Yeah.
You know, the disciples had to talk about that. Remember when we studied Galatians, right? And some of the Jews were like, no, they have to do this. They have to be circumcised. They're like, they came back and said, why are we making this so hard?
Yeah.
Why are we trying to make it so hard for people to know Jesus?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And I think, I don't know what it is, man. I think it's a control thing. We want to be able to say it's this way because it's the only way I see it. You know what I mean?
Put them in a box.
So we struggle with control.
Right.
That's a whole other conversation. I think I'll stop there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, I think, again, as believers, so I'm talking to believers, it's like we have way more in common.
Yep.
So why not focus on those things that we have in common versus the things we don't? And the world is already so confused about this whole thing.
Yeah, making it worse.
And we're making it worse.
Yep.
You know?
Amen.
Amen.
And that's all she wrote?
Yeah. So your social handle, no social handle, we don't have any way to contact. Well, I'll tell you what, just call the church office. Okay, if you can't find any other way, he works here. And the church office number will be right below.
So my next task is to disconnect the church phone line.
Well, as always, friends, thank you so much for joining us for Ask Pastor. If you want to submit a question, you can do it a couple different ways. You can send us a direct message on Facebook or Instagram. If you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, you can leave a comment in the video itself. You can also send us an email, but my favorite way to submit a question is by opening our New Life South Coast app. And in the Ask Pastor tab, there's an option to submit a question right at the top. And even though it asks for your first and your last name, don't worry, it all remains completely 100% anonymous. We love you guys so much, and we'll see you next time.